Manhattan, New York, 2:55 p.m. on a Tuesday. John Harrison Blackwood III was having the best day of his life when she called. Not Eleanor, his grandmother, not Madison, his ex-girlfriend, not Margaret, his efficient secretary. Her. The woman who would change everything in exactly 5 minutes. But John didn't know that yet, as he admired the view from the 47th floor of Blackwood Industries, watching Manhattan stretch out like a kingdom that would someday be his. 2 hours earlier, he had closed the biggest deal of his career, $300 million in mergers that would finally make his father recognize he wasn't just the family's problem child. The phone rang. "Johnny?" William Blackwood Sr.'s deep voice cut through the air like a blade. "My office. Now." 15 minutes later, John stood before the most powerful man in his life, who held a gossip magazine like evidence in a courtroom. "Billionaire bets Ferrari on Hampton's lobster race." William read the headline aloud, each word dripping with contempt. "John Blackwood turns charity gala into tequila competition." "Dad, I can explain." 32 years, John." William threw the magazine on the desk. 32 years of scandals, empty women, and irresponsible decisions. The board wants you out of the company. John's world collapsed in slow motion. "But I closed the Morrison deal today, $300 million. And last weekend you showed up drunk at Senator Collins's wedding." William stood up, walking to the window. "You have 5 minutes to convince me you're ready to change, that you found something, someone who makes you want to be a better man." John felt the cold sweat. "Dad, a fiancé, Johnny. Bring me a fiancé who proves you've finally grown up. 5 minutes." The line went dead. John stared at the phone like it was a death sentence. 5 minutes to save his life, his inheritance, his future. And it was while running through the streets of Manhattan, desperate and in total panic, that fate decided to intervene. Lisa Marie Gonzalez was having the worst day of her life. First, the alarm didn't go off. Then the shower ran out of hot water. Then she discovered her mother had forgotten to take her medication again, and now she was 2 hours late for work at Been There, Done That, the artisanal coffee shop where every lost minute meant money she didn't have. Running down Fifth Avenue with a tray of 5 specialty coffees for delivery, Lisa didn't see the man in the expensive suit coming toward her like a missile guided by desperation. The collision was epic. Time slowed down. The coffees flew in a liquid ballet against the gray sky, creating a fragrant rainbow of caramel and vanilla. Lisa flew backward, her brown eyes wide with shock, while strong arms wrapped around her, preventing her fall. They remained there, trapped in an accidental embrace in the middle of urban chaos. His face was inches from hers. Intense blue eyes met surprised brown eyes. The world stopped. "Jesus," John murmured, still holding her against his chest. "Are you okay?" Lisa blinked, aware of the heat emanating from his body, the scent of his expensive cologne mixed with spilled coffee. Yes, I think so." They separated slowly, but John couldn't take his eyes off her. There was something about Lisa, a genuine light he had never seen in the women of his social circle. Her beauty wasn't in perfect makeup or expensive clothes, but in her shy smile and the way her eyes sparkled even amid disaster. "The coffees," she murmured, looking at the liquid scattered across the sidewalk. "Oh God, my boss is going to kill me." And it was in that moment of pure vulnerability that a completely insane idea sprouted in John's mind. "Hey," he said, his voice suddenly gentle. "What if I told you I could solve your problems?" Lisa looked at him with suspicion. "How?" John checked his watch. 2 minutes. "I need a favor. A very strange favor." He took a deep breath. "I need you to pretend to be my fiancé for 2 hours." Lisa blinked. Once. Twice. "I'm sorry, what?" $10,000, John said quickly. "Just need you to pretend you love me in front of my father. 2 hours. $10,000 in cash." Lisa studied him. Really studied him. She saw the desperation behind the arrogance, the vulnerability hidden under layers of privilege. And most importantly, she saw that he wasn't trying to take advantage of her. He was genuinely desperate. Are you serious? Completely. John extended his hand. Lisa, what's your last name? Gonzalez. Lisa Gonzalez. Lisa Gonzalez, you just saved my life. And when she shook his hand, an electric spark passed between them, something neither expected, but both felt. So, Lisa said, smiling for the first time that day. Where are we going, future fiancé? John smiled back, the first genuine smile in years. To meet the most difficult man in New York. And so it was, in the chaos of Manhattan, with coffee staining the sidewalk and fate laughing in their faces, that two completely different worlds collided. John Harrison Blackwood III had just found much more than a fake fiancé. He had found his complete destruction and the love of his life. Blackwood Industries, 47th floor, 3:02 p.m. Lisa Marie Gonzalez had exactly 7 minutes to transform from a coffee-stained waitress into the love of a billionaire's life. No pressure. Okay, quick briefing, John said, practically dragging her into the marble and gold elevator of Blackwood Industries. His hand was warm on her lower back, and Lisa tried to ignore the way her pulse quickened at the contact. My father is William Blackwood Sr. Think Gordon Gekko, but with better suits and zero sense of humor. Comforting, Lisa muttered, catching her reflection in the polished elevator doors. Her hair was still escaping its ponytail, her uniform wrinkled from their collision. John, I look like I was hit by a truck. You look perfect. The words slipped out before John could stop them, and both of them froze. He cleared his throat. I mean, authentically imperfect. That's good. Dad will never believe I'd fall for someone who looks like she stepped out of Vogue. Thanks, Lisa thought, but found herself studying John's profile as the elevator climbed. Even in panic, he was devastatingly handsome. The kind of man who probably had women throwing themselves at him since prep school. Floor 37, John continued, his voice getting tighter with each passing second. We met at... Where did we meet? The coffee shop, Lisa said automatically. You came in every morning at 7:15, ordered a double espresso with a splash of oat milk, no sugar. You always tipped exactly 20% and never looked up from your phone. John stared at her. That's incredibly specific. You've been coming to Bean there for 6 months, John. I notice my customers. Lisa shrugged, not mentioning how she'd started timing her shifts to coincide with his visits, or how she'd practiced making his coffee perfect every single time. What? Did you think I was invisible? Something flickered across John's face. Surprise, maybe even shame. No, I just... Ding. The elevator doors opened before he could finish. And there, waiting like a predator in an Armani suit, stood William Blackwood Sr. You're late, William said without preamble, his steel-gray eyes immediately locking onto Lisa with laser precision. And you are? This was it. The moment of truth. Lisa felt John tense beside her, felt the weight of $10,000 and whatever was left of John's future pressing down on her shoulders. She could run, should run. This was insane. Instead, she stepped forward and smiled. The same warm, genuine smile that made customers at the coffee shop feel like they were the most important person in her world. Lisa Gonzalez, Mr. Blackwood. I've heard so much about you. William's eyebrows rose almost imperceptibly. Whatever he'd been expecting, it wasn't the confident young woman extending her hand with complete composure. Have you indeed? He shook her hand briefly, and Lisa felt like she was being X-rayed. And how exactly did you meet my son? At my coffee shop, Lisa said smoothly. Johnny's been coming in for months, always so focused on work. I finally got tired of waiting for him to notice me and asked him out myself. John's head snapped toward her in shock. Johnny? No one had called him that since he was 12. You asked him out? William's tone was pure disbelief. Someone had to. Lisa glanced at John with what looked like fond exasperation. For a brilliant businessman, he's surprisingly oblivious when it comes to women actually interested in him as a person, not his bank account. William's eyes narrowed, but not with suspicion, with intrigue. And what makes you think you know my son as a person? This was dangerous territory. Lisa felt John's tension radiating beside her like heat from a furnace. She took a breath and decided to gamble everything on the truth she'd observed from behind a coffee counter. Because I've watched him be kind when he thinks no one's looking, she said quietly. He always asks Margaret about her grandchildren. He never snaps at service workers, even when he's clearly having a terrible day. And last month, when that homeless veteran came into the shop and couldn't afford coffee, Johnny quietly paid for his meal and pretended it was a promotion we were running. John stared at her in amazement. He'd thought no one had seen that. William's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. I see. From his corner office across the building, Bradley Morrison III watched the scene unfold through security cameras with growing irritation. At 28, Bradley was everything John used to be, entitled, ruthless, and absolutely convinced that he deserved John's position as heir apparent to the Blackwood Empire. Well, well, Bradley thought, adjusting his Hermes tie. Johnny Boy found himself a little actress. He'd been monitoring John's every move for months, waiting for the perfect moment to expose him as unfit for leadership. This fake fiancé stunt was exactly the ammunition he needed. Time to do some digging on Miss Lisa Gonzalez, he mused, already reaching for his phone. Coffee shop waitress trying to play in the big leagues? This should be entertaining. Bradley smiled, the kind of smile that made small animals flee for cover. Don't worry, Johnny. Uncle Bradley will make sure Daddy knows exactly what kind of gold-digging little liar you've brought home. Back in William's office, the interrogation continued. And your intentions with my son? William asked Lisa directly, completely ignoring John's presence. Lisa felt the weight of the question. $10,000 hung in the balance, but something deeper was happening here. She looked at John, really looked at him, and saw not the arrogant playboy from the tabloids, but a man desperate for his father's approval, terrified of disappointing the only family he had left. I love him, she said simply, and was shocked to realize how easily the words came. I love that he works 16-hour days because he wants to prove himself, not because he has to. I love that he pretends not to care what people think while secretly caring too much. And I love that he's brave enough to change, even when it scares him. The room went dead silent. John felt like he'd been punched in the chest. She was supposed to be acting, but every word felt like she could see straight into his soul. William studied them both for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When's the wedding? He asked finally. John's mouth fell open. Dad, we haven't. 6 months, Lisa said quickly, then looked at John with eyes that sparkled with mischief. We wanted to be sure, didn't we, honey? Honey. The word sent an unexpected jolt through John's system. Yes, sure, absolutely, he managed. William nodded slowly. Good. That gives me time to plan properly. He stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Lisa, I look forward to getting to know you better. Johnny, don't screw this up. As they walked toward the elevator, William called out one last time. Oh, and Lisa? She turned back. Welcome to the family. The elevator doors closed, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. They'd done it. Somehow, impossibly, they'd convinced William Blackwood that their hastily constructed lie was real. Holy shit, John breathed. We actually pulled it off. Language, honey, Lisa teased, then immediately blushed at her own boldness. John laughed, really laughed, for what felt like the first time in years. You're incredible, you know that? That thing about the homeless veteran? I can't believe you noticed. I notice everything about you, John. The words slipped out before Lisa could stop them, and suddenly the elevator felt very small and very warm. They were standing closer now, close enough that Lisa could see the golden flecks in John's blue eyes, close enough to feel his breath when he spoke. Lisa, he said softly, his voice rough with something that sounded dangerously close to real emotion. Ding. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby, shattering the moment like glass. So, Lisa said, stepping back and trying to regain her composure. $10,000? John blinked, reality crashing back. Right. Yes, of course. He pulled out his wallet and handed her an envelope he'd apparently prepared in advance. As promised. Lisa took the money, their fingers brushing for just a moment. That electric spark was there again, stronger now. Thank you, she said, for saving my job, and my mom's medication fund, and probably my sanity. Thank you, John replied, for saving my entire life. They stood there in the marble lobby, two people from completely different worlds who had just shared something real in the middle of an elaborate lie. I should go, Lisa said finally. Yeah, me too. Neither of them moved. Lisa. John's voice stopped her as she finally turned toward the door. Yes? Would you? That is, if you're not busy tomorrow night. Would you like to have dinner? As a thank you, for today. Lisa smiled, and John felt his heart do something acrobatic in his chest. I'd like that, Johnny. And as she walked away, John Harrison Blackwood III realized with growing terror that his fake fiancée was becoming the most real thing in his entire fabricated life. Across town, Bradley Morrison III finished his phone call with a private investigator and smiled. Game on, Johnny boy. Game on. Lisa's apartment, Washington Heights, 6:30 p.m., next day. Lisa Marie Gonzalez stood in front of her tiny closet, having what could only be described as a complete mental breakdown. It's not a real date, she told her reflection for the 15th time. It's a thank you dinner with a billionaire who held me in his arms yesterday and made me forget my own name. Completely platonic, totally professional. Oh God, I'm screwed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Mija, you've been staring at that closet for an hour. Just pick something that makes you feel beautiful. Smart woman, her mother. Even battling early-onset dementia, Carmen Gonzalez still had moments of perfect clarity that cut straight to the heart of things. Lisa pulled out her one good dress, a simple black number she'd bought for her nursing school graduation. It wasn't designer, but it fit her perfectly and made her feel confident. As she slipped it on, she caught herself wondering what John would think, then immediately scolded herself. It's not real, Lisa. None of this is real. Her phone rang. Hey! John's voice was warm, slightly nervous. I'm downstairs. Should I come up? Or... Lisa peered out her fourth-floor window and nearly choked. A sleek black Tesla was parked outside her building, looking as out of place in Washington Heights as a diamond in a sandbox. I'll be right down, she said quickly. The last thing she needed was John seeing her cramped apartment with its second-hand furniture and peeling paint. But as she hung up, she realized something that made her stomach flutter. He'd asked if he should come up, like a real date. Like someone who wanted to meet her family, see where she lived, understand her world. Stop it, Lisa. Just stop. John had been sitting in his car for 20 minutes, and he still couldn't figure out why he was so nervous. He'd taken women to 5-star restaurants, Broadway premieres, private jets to Paris. He'd never felt this kind of anxiety before a simple dinner. Maybe because those women had known exactly what they were getting into. The Blackwood name, the money, the lifestyle. They'd been performing just as much as he was. But Lisa was different. She'd seen him panic in the street, held his hand when he was desperate, looked his father in the eye, and defended him like he actually mattered to her. And now he was taking her to dinner, and he had absolutely no idea how to be himself around someone who might actually like who that person was. When she emerged from the building, John's breath caught in his throat. She looked stunning, not in the calculated way of the society women he usually dated, but in a way that was entirely, authentically her. The black dress hugged her curves perfectly, and her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders. He got out of the car to open her door, a gesture that made Lisa's heart skip. "You look beautiful," he said softly, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." John glanced down at his casual button-down and jeans, the most relaxed outfit he'd worn in public in years. "I thought about wearing a suit, but then I remembered you called me overdressed once." Lisa laughed. "When did I call you overdressed?" 3 months ago. You said, and I quote, "Who wears a 3-piece suit to buy coffee at 7 a.m.? Are you meeting the Queen of England or just really committed to intimidating your barista?" Lisa's mouth fell open. "You remember that?" "I remember everything you've ever said to me, Lisa." The admission slipped out before John could stop it. And suddenly, they were both staring at each other with an intensity that had nothing to do with fake engagements or business deals. Meanwhile, across town, Bradley Morrison III was having his own kind of evening. Lisa Marie Gonzalez, he read from the private investigator's report. 26 years old. Mother Carmen Gonzalez, diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. Father unknown. Currently enrolled in nursing school at Columbia, while working full-time at Been There, Done That. No criminal record, no social media presence worth mentioning, no obvious red flags. How disappointingly clean, Bradley thought, swirling his 25-year-old scotch. But everyone has secrets. Everyone has pressure points. He scrolled further down the report until he found what he was looking for. Medical expenses for mother's treatment. $3,200 monthly. Current savings, $847. Student loans, $47,000. Rent, 3 months behind. Bradley smiled his predatory smile. There we go. Little Miss Perfect is drowning in debt, and desperate people make poor decisions. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Vincent, it's Bradley Morrison. I need you to do something for me. There's a coffee shop called Been There, Done That. I want you to make the owner an offer he can't refuse. Buy the place. Tonight. Let's see how loyal Johnny's little actress is when her entire world starts falling apart," Bradley thought. Time to turn up the heat. John had chosen a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy, the kind of place that prioritized incredible food over Instagram-worthy presentations. It was intimate without being intimidating, romantic without being presumptuous. "This is perfect," Lisa said, as they were seated at a corner table. "I was half expecting you to take me somewhere with 7 forks and a sommelier who judges my wine knowledge." "Do you want me to?" John asked, and Lisa could tell he was genuinely asking. "I can call Le Bernardin. Get us a table." "John." Lisa reached across the table and touched his hand, stopping his nervous rambling. "This is perfect. Really." The simple contact sent electricity shooting up John's arm. He looked down at her hand covering his. No manicure. A small scar on her knuckle from what looked like a childhood accident. Calluses from years of hard work. It was the most beautiful hand he'd ever seen. "Tell me about nursing school," he said, because he genuinely wanted to know, not because it was polite dinner conversation. Lisa's face lit up. "It's hard, really hard, but I love it. There's something about helping people when they're at their most vulnerable. It feels like the most important thing I could be doing with my life. Even though it means working 2 jobs and probably never sleeping. Even though." Lisa smiled. "What about you? Do you love what you do?" John paused, fork halfway to his mouth. No one had ever asked him that question before. I'm good at it," he said finally. "Making deals, reading markets, building wealth. That's not what I asked." John set down his fork and really looked at her. "No, I don't love it. I love the idea of proving I'm worthy of it, but the actual work. It feels like I'm playing a role someone else wrote for me. So why do it? Because it's what Blackwoods do. What I was raised to do, and because I'm terrified of disappointing my father any more than I already have." The honesty in his voice made Lisa's chest tight. "John, from what I saw yesterday, your father doesn't want you to be perfect. He wants you to be real." "How can you possibly know that?" "Because that's what parents want," Lisa said softly. "They want to know their children will be okay when they're gone. And okay doesn't mean perfect. It means genuine, connected, loved. John stared at her. You're talking about your mother. She forgets things now, important things. But she always remembers to ask if I'm happy, not successful, not rich, not impressive. Happy. Lisa's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. That's love, John. And yesterday, when your father looked at you while I was talking about who you really are, that's exactly how he was looking at you. Something cracked open in John's chest. A wall he'd been building since he was old enough to understand that love in his family came with conditions and quarterly reports. Lisa, he said, his voice rough. His phone buzzed with an urgent text. Then another. Then it started ringing. Shit, he muttered, looking at the caller ID. It's Margaret. Something's wrong. He answered the call, and Lisa watched his face go white. What do you mean, bought? John said into the phone. Who bought it? When? Lisa felt ice form in her stomach. I see. Yes. No, don't call him back. I'll handle this. John hung up and looked at Lisa with an expression she couldn't read. What's wrong? She asked, though she was terrified to hear the answer. Someone bought Bean there, done that tonight. The entire building. Your boss got an offer he couldn't refuse, and you don't have a job anymore. Lisa felt the world tilt sideways. That's impossible. Who would? But even as she asked the question, they both realized they knew exactly who would do something like this. Someone who wanted to hurt John. Someone who knew exactly where to hit him, where it would do the most damage. Bradley, John said quietly. Who's Bradley? John's jaw clenched. My cousin. And apparently, my problem just became your problem. Lisa stared at him, the reality of the situation hitting her like a physical blow. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real life, with real consequences, and she'd just gotten caught in the crossfire of a war she didn't understand. I should go, she said, starting to stand. Lisa, wait. No, John. This is exactly what I was afraid of. I don't belong in your world, and apparently your world doesn't want me in it. Hey. John stood too, catching her hand. Look at me. She did reluctantly. We're going to fix this. Together. How? John's eyes were blazing with something that looked like determination mixed with fury. By beating Bradley at his own game. By making this engagement real enough that he can't touch you. Lisa felt her heart stop. What are you saying? I'm saying marry me, Lisa. For real this time. Rossetti's Italian Restaurant. Little Italy, 8:47 p.m. Marry me, Lisa. For real this time. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge to gravity itself. Around them, the cozy Italian restaurant continued its evening rhythm. The gentle clink of wine glasses, murmured conversations in 3 languages, the soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. But in their corner booth, time had stopped completely. Lisa stared at John as if he'd just announced his intention to swim to the moon. Have you completely lost your mind? She whispered, glancing around to make sure no one else had heard his insane proposal. Probably, John admitted, sitting back down and pulling her gently with him. But hear me out. Bradley isn't going to stop with your job. He's going to come after everything and everyone you care about until he destroys whatever he thinks we have. Which is nothing, Lisa hissed. We have nothing, John. We've known each other for exactly 24 hours. Have we? John leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. Because I feel like I've been waiting for you my entire life. And yesterday, when you looked my father in the eye and defended me like I actually mattered to you, that wasn't acting, Lisa. Lisa's heart hammered against her ribs. John, you said you notice everything about me. Well, I notice things too, like how you bite your lower lip when you're thinking, how you always tip your head to the left when you're really listening to someone, how your eyes light up when you talk about helping people. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. How you look at me like I'm someone worth knowing, not something worth having. Lisa felt tears threatening. That doesn't mean we should get married. Why not? John reached across the table and took both her hands. We're already engaged as far as the world is concerned. Bradley just proved he's willing to destroy innocent people to get to me. But if we're really married... What? He'll magically give up and leave us alone? No. But he'll have to be a lot more careful about how he attacks you. There are laws about harassing the spouse of a Blackwood, social consequences. And besides, John's thumb traced across her knuckles, sending shivers up her arms. I meant what I said yesterday. You're incredible, Lisa. Any man would be lucky to have you in his life. Lisa pulled her hands away, her mind racing. This is insane. You're talking about marriage like it's a business merger. Isn't it? John asked quietly. I get protection for someone I care about, plus a wife who sees me as more than a bank account. You get financial security for you and your mother, plus... He hesitated. Plus someone who thinks you're the most amazing woman he's ever met. 3 tables away, a man in an expensive suit finished his osso buco and casually photographed John and Lisa's intense conversation with a telephoto lens disguised as a phone case. Bradley had trained his private investigator well. Perfect, Vincent texted to his employer. Looks like they're having a serious fight. Whatever you did with the coffee shop worked. She looks devastated. Excellent, Bradley replied from his penthouse apartment. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Time to introduce Miss Gonzalez to some of Johnny's former associates. Let's see how she handles learning about Madison Thornfield's little pregnancy scare last year. Bradley poured himself another scotch and smiled at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Poor Johnny has no idea who he's really dealing with. Little Lisa is about to discover that fairy tales don't exist in my world. And when she runs, which she will, Daddy Dearest will finally see what a pathetic failure his precious son really is. The predator in Armani took a satisfied sip of his drink. Game, set, and match. Back at the restaurant, Lisa was staring at John like he'd just solved quantum physics while juggling. You care about me? She asked, her voice barely audible. John's cheeks flushed. Yes. I know that sounds crazy, but it is crazy. Lisa laughed, but it wasn't entirely without humor. John, this morning, I was a broke nursing student whose biggest worry was whether I could afford groceries this week. Now you're asking me to marry you to thwart your evil cousin's master plan. This isn't real life. This is a telenovela. Maybe. But the feelings are real. John leaned forward again, his expression serious. At least mine are. What about yours? The question hit Lisa like a physical blow, because the truth was, somewhere between his desperate proposal yesterday and his honest vulnerability tonight, she'd started falling for John Harrison Blackwood III. Not his money, not his status, but the man who remembered every conversation they'd had, who defended homeless veterans when no one was watching, who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. John, she said carefully, even if, and I'm saying if, we did this insane thing, what happens when you get tired of playing house with the coffee shop girl? When you meet someone from your actual social circle who doesn't embarrass you at charity galas? Is that really what you think of me? John's voice was quiet, but there was hurt in it. That I'm that shallow. I think you're a good man who's been surrounded by shallow people for so long that you might not recognize real when you see it. Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. And I think I'm terrified of believing this is real only to discover I was just a convenient solution to a temporary problem. John was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. Then he did something that surprised them both. He laughed. You want to know something funny? He said. Yesterday morning I thought my biggest problem was convincing my father I wasn't a complete disaster. But you know what my actual biggest problem was? What? I was completely, utterly, mind-numbingly lonely. I had everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. No one who knew me. No one who cared if I lived or died, just whether I showed up to meetings and didn't embarrass the family name. John reached for her hands again, and this time she didn't pull away. And then this beautiful, fierce, impossible woman literally crashed into my life and saw straight through every wall I'd built. You defended me to my father like I was worth defending. You remembered every stupid thing I'd ever said to you like my words actually mattered. And for the first time in my life, I felt like myself, instead of just playing a role. Lisa felt her resolve crumbling. John, I'm not asking you to love me, Lisa. I'm asking you to give us a chance to see what this could be. Real marriage, real partnership, real feelings, no more acting. His thumb traced across her knuckles again. What do you say? Want to find out if fairy tales can exist in the real world? Lisa looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the vulnerability behind the confidence, the hope behind the desperation, the man behind the fortune. She thought about her mother's medical bills, her student loans, the uncertainty that had defined her entire adult life. But mostly, she thought about the way her heart had skipped when he'd called her incredible. The way he'd listened, really listened, when she talked about her dreams. The way he'd made her feel seen and valued and precious. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Yes, okay. I'll marry you, John Harrison Blackwood III. For real this time. John's face broke into a grin that could have powered half of Manhattan. Really? Really. But I have conditions. Name them. First, we do this right. No Vegas chapel, no quickie courthouse ceremony. If we're going to convince everyone this is real, we need a real wedding. Done. What else? Second, we live together. Really live together. I want to know who you are when you're not performing for anyone. I'd like that, John said softly. What else? Third, if this doesn't work, if we realize we're too different, or if you change your mind, or if I embarrass you too badly at some society function, we end it honestly. No lies, no pretending, no dragging it out because it's convenient. John nodded seriously. And fourth? There is no fourth. That's it. Then I have a condition too. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Which is? John pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, and Lisa's heart stopped. If we're doing this for real, you need a real ring. He opened the box to reveal a stunning vintage diamond ring, not ostentatious or flashy, but elegant and timeless. Exactly what Lisa would have chosen if she'd been brave enough to dream that big. John, I can't accept this. It must have cost. It was my grandmother's, he said quietly. My mother's mother. She left it to me with instructions to give it to someone who would love me for who I am, not what I have. Lisa felt tears spill over. How do you know I'm that person? Because yesterday, when I was the most desperate and pathetic version of myself, you still chose to help me. Because tonight, you're saying yes to marrying a man you barely know because you believe in the possibility of something real. John slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. Because you're brave enough to take a leap of faith on love. The ring fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her all along. So, John said, his voice rough with emotion, Lisa Marie Gonzalez, will you marry me? For real this time. Lisa looked at the ring, then at John, then at the impossible situation they'd created. Then she smiled. The smile that had made John fall in love with her in the first place. Yes, Johnny, for real this time. And when he kissed her, right there in the middle of Rossetti's Italian restaurant, it tasted like the beginning of everything. Across the restaurant, Vincent got the perfect shot of their kiss and immediately sent it to Bradley with a message. Looks like they made up. Sorry, boss. But Bradley's response surprised him. Perfect. Let them think they've won. Tomorrow, we destroy them both. The war was just beginning. John's penthouse, Upper East Side, 6:30 a.m., next day. Lisa Marie Gonzalez, soon-to-be Blackwood, woke up in a bed that cost more than her annual rent, wearing John's Columbia University t-shirt, with a priceless vintage diamond sparkling on her finger, and absolutely no idea what the hell she'd gotten herself into. The previous night felt like a fever dream. After the proposal, the real proposal, John had insisted on taking her home, to his home, because if we're doing this, we're doing it right, and right means protecting you from whatever Bradley has planned next. His penthouse was, well, it was exactly what she'd expected and nothing like she'd feared. Yes, it was massive, and yes, everything was clearly expensive, but it felt lived in rather than sterile. Books everywhere, coffee mugs on side tables, a guitar in the corner that looked actually played rather than decorative. "You're awake." John's voice came from the doorway, soft and careful. He was holding 2 coffee mugs and wearing joggers and a rumpled white t-shirt that made him look younger and more approachable than any Armani suit ever could. "I made coffee," he continued, advancing slowly like she might bolt. "It's probably terrible. I usually have Margaret handle anything more complex than instant." Lisa sat up, acutely aware that she was wearing his shirt and nothing else, and that he was trying very hard not to notice. "You let me sleep in your bed." "I slept on the couch," John said quickly. "I want to be clear about that. Last night was a lot. I didn't want you to feel pressured about anything." Something warm unfurled in Lisa's chest. In her world, guys who looked like John and had his money usually didn't worry about pressure or consent or making women comfortable. "Thank you," she said, accepting the coffee mug. That was thoughtful. "I can be thoughtful," John said, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "Sometimes, when I'm not completely panicking about fake fiancés and evil cousins." Lisa laughed, and the sound seemed to relax them both. "Speaking of evil cousins, what exactly are we expecting Bradley to do today?" "Honestly, I have no idea. Bradley's always been—" John paused, searching for the right words. "Imagine if Machiavelli and Regina George had a baby and raised it on Wall Street in pure spite. Terrifying but oddly specific. He's been gunning for my position in the company since we were kids. Every mistake I've made, every scandal, every moment of weakness, Bradley's been there with a camera and a plan to use it against me." John's jaw tightened. "I just never thought he'd go after innocent people to get to me." "I'm not that innocent," Lisa said softly. John looked at her then. Really looked at her, and the intensity in his blue eyes made her breath catch. "You're the most innocent thing in my world, Lisa. And that's exactly why Bradley will try to destroy you." Across town, Bradley Morrison III was having breakfast at the Harvard Club and plotting the complete annihilation of his cousin's happiness. "Gentlemen," he said to the 2 men seated across from him, a tabloid reporter named Jake Sullivan and a private investigator called Marcus Webb. "Today we begin the systematic destruction of John Blackwood's little fairy tale romance." Jake, a Weasley man with the moral flexibility of a contortionist, pulled out his phone. "I've got 3 sources willing to go on record about Blackwood's past indiscretions. The gambling, the drinking, the time he crashed his Maserati into the Plaza fountain." "Excellent, but that's just the appetizer." Bradley smiled his predatory smile. "The main course is Miss Lisa Gonzalez and her fascinating family history." Marcus, a man who looked like he'd learned his investigative techniques from mob movies, slid a thick folder across the table. "The mother's medical records make for interesting reading. Did you know Carmen Gonzalez was hospitalized for a psychiatric evaluation 3 years ago? Depression, anxiety, possible early signs of dementia." "Fascinating," Bradley purred. "And the girl herself?" "Clean as a whistle, unfortunately. But here's the thing. She's been paying for her mother's experimental treatments through a clinic that's, let's say, not entirely above board. Falsified insurance claims, kickbacks to doctors, the works." Bradley's eyes lit up. "Are you saying our sweet little Lisa is involved in insurance fraud?" "I'm saying the clinic she's been using operates in a very gray area. And if someone were to report them to the authorities?" Marcus shrugged. "Well, patients and their families often get caught in the crossfire of these investigations." "Perfect." Bradley leaned back in his leather chair. Jake, I want you to run a story about John's whirlwind romance with a mysterious waitress. Really play up the gold digger angle. Marcus, I want you to make some anonymous calls to the insurance fraud task force. What about the engagement announcement? Jake asked. Word is they're planning something soon. Bradley's smile turned vicious. Oh, let them have their moment. Let them think they've won. Because when everything comes crashing down, and it will, the fall will be so much more devastating. Time to remind Johnny Boy that in this family, only one person gets to be the golden child, Bradley thought. And it was never going to be him. Back at the penthouse, John and Lisa were attempting to navigate the most awkward morning-after conversation in the history of fake-turned-real relationships. So, Lisa said, sitting cross-legged on his enormous couch with her second cup of coffee, what does a real engagement look like in your world? Because I'm pretty sure it doesn't usually involve hiding from psychotic family members. John laughed, and Lisa realized she was already getting addicted to that sound. Well, normally there would be announcements in the Times, engagement parties, meetings with wedding planners who charge more per hour than most people make in a month. That sounds awful. It usually is. But with you... John set down his mug and turned to face her fully. I want to do whatever makes you happy. If you want a small ceremony with just your family, we do that. If you want to elope to Vegas, we do that. If you want the full society circus with 500 guests and ice sculptures, we do that too. Lisa studied his face. What do you want, John? Honestly, I want everyone to see that I found something real. I want my father to see that you make me better. I want Bradley to choke on his own jealousy. John's expression softened. And I want you to feel like the most beautiful bride in the world, no matter what that looks like. Before Lisa could respond, John's phone started ringing. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. It's Margaret. She never calls this early unless... He answered quickly. Margaret? What's wrong? Lisa watched John's face go through a series of expressions, confusion, anger, and finally, cold fury. I see. Yes. No, don't comment. I'll handle this. He hung up and looked at Lisa with an expression she couldn't read. What happened? She asked, though she was terrified to hear the answer. Bradley made his first move. There's a story about us in the Morning Post. Front page. John handed her his phone, and Lisa felt the blood drain from her face as she read the headline, Blackwood airs desperate bid, Billionaire catches waitress with suspicious timing. The article was everything she'd feared, and worse. It painted her as a calculating gold digger who'd trapped a vulnerable man during a moment of crisis. It mentioned her mother's medical bills, her student loans, even her address in Washington Heights. But the worst part was the photo. A grainy shot of them at the restaurant the night before, with a caption that read, Sources say Gonzalez was seen arguing with Blackwood before he allegedly proposed to salvage the relationship. They made it look like I was blackmailing you, Lisa whispered. Lisa, no one who matters will believe this garbage. Everyone will believe it, John. This is exactly what people expect. The poor girl using the rich guy. They'll think I planned this whole thing. Lisa stood up abruptly, pacing to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Central Park. I knew this was a mistake. I knew I didn't belong in your world. Hey. John was beside her in an instant, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Look at me. She did, reluctantly. I don't care what some tabloid says. I don't care what anyone thinks they know about us. The only people whose opinions matter are you, me, and the people who actually love us. Your father is going to see this. My father knew about your financial situation before he met you yesterday, and he still welcomed you to the family, because he saw what I see. Someone real, someone genuine, someone who makes me want to be better. Lisa felt tears threatening. What if Bradley's just getting started? What if this gets worse? John's jaw tightened with determination. Then we fight back. Together. Because that's what married couples do. They face the world as a team. We're not married yet, aren't we? John cupped her face in his hands. Lisa, Yesterday I was a man without a family, without real friends, without anyone who cared about the person I am under all the money and expectations. Today I have you. As far as I'm concerned, everything else is just paperwork. And when he kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise, Lisa felt something shift inside her chest, something that felt suspiciously like hope. They broke apart when John's phone rang again. "William Blackwood Sr.," John said, showing her the caller ID. "My father." Lisa's stomach dropped. "He's seen the article." "Probably." John answered the call. "Dad?" Lisa couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched John's expressions carefully. "Yes, I saw it." "No, it's complete garbage. She's not—" "Dad, you met her. You know what she's like." A pause. "What do you mean, prove it?" Lisa felt ice form in her veins. "I see. How long do we have?" Another pause. "Understood. We'll be there." John hung up and looked at Lisa with an expression that was half apology, half determination. The board called an emergency meeting. "They're questioning my judgment, my fitness to eventually take over the company. Bradley's been busy this morning." "John, I'm so sorry. This is exactly what you were afraid of." "No, it's not." John took her hands, the engagement ring catching the morning light. "What I was afraid of was spending my whole life alone, pretending to be someone I'm not. But I have you now. We have each other." "What did your father mean about proving it?" John hesitated. "He wants us to move up the timeline." "Get married this weekend instead of waiting." Lisa's eyes widened. "This weekend? That's impossible." "Is it? We know what we want. We know how we feel. What's the point in waiting for Bradley to come up with new ways to hurt us?" Lisa looked at this man who'd crashed into her life barely 48 hours ago and completely turned it upside down. The smart thing would be to run. The safe thing would be to disappear back to her old life and forget any of this ever happened. Instead, she thought about the way he'd defended her to his father, the way he'd slept on the couch to make her comfortable, the way he looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. "Okay," she said. "Okay. Yes. Let's get married this weekend. Let's show Bradley and the board and everyone else that this is real." Lisa smiled, and John felt his heart do that acrobatic thing again. Besides, how hard can it be to plan a wedding in 4 days? John laughed and spun her around his penthouse living room, both of them giddy with the insanity of what they were about to do. Neither of them noticed the telephoto lens pointed at them from the building across the street, or the man behind it who was already dialing Bradley's number. "Boss? You're going to want to see these photos. They're not acting like people in a fake relationship." Bradley's voice was cold as winter. "Then we'll just have to try harder to break them, won't we?" The war was escalating, and Lisa and John had no idea what was coming next. Vera Wang Bridal Salon, Madison Avenue, 10:30 a.m., Thursday. Absolutely not. Lisa stared at herself in the mirror wearing a dress that cost more than her mother's yearly medication budget and felt like she was looking at a stranger. The Vera Wang creation was stunning, all silk and lace and dreams made manifest, but it wasn't her. "But Miss Gonzalez," the saleswoman Vivian said with barely concealed horror, "this is the Serafina. It was featured in Vogue. Celebrities have waiting lists for this dress." "Then they can have it," Lisa said firmly, starting to unzip the back. "I need something that feels like me, not like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life." From his chair in the corner, John watched this exchange with growing admiration. Most women in his circle would have grabbed the most expensive dress without blinking, but Lisa was more concerned with authenticity than status. "What about this one?" Margaret, John's secretary turned wedding planner turned miracle worker, emerged from the back room with a simpler dress. Still clearly designer, but elegant rather than ostentatious. Lisa's breath caught. It was perfect. Classic lines, delicate beading, the kind of dress that would look timeless in photos 50 years from now. "Now that," she said softly, "feels like getting married." John stood up, and Lisa felt heat flush through her at the expression on his face. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride in the world," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You can't see me in it," Lisa protested, laughing. "Bad luck. Lisa, sweetheart, we're planning a wedding in 4 days to outsmart my psychopathic cousin. I think we've already broken every superstition in the book." The endearment, "sweetheart," hit Lisa like a physical caress. When had that started feeling so natural? "Besides," John continued, moving closer, "I've already seen the most important thing." "Which is?" "The way your whole face lights up when you smile. Everything else is just decoration." Vivian made a small, swooning sound from behind the rack of dresses. Lisa felt herself melting. "You're not allowed to be charming when I'm trying on wedding dresses. It's cheating." "All's fair in love and wedding planning," John murmured, close enough now that she could smell his cologne. "Is that what this is?" Lisa asked softly. "Love?" John's eyes searched her face. "I think it might be. Is that terrifying?" "Absolutely." "Good. The best things in life should be a little terrifying." They were interrupted by the sharp sound of Margaret clearing her throat. "I hate to break up this moment," she said dryly, "but we have 17 vendors to see today, a guest list to finalize, and your cousin Bradley has been calling the florist asking questions about your rushed ceremony." The spell broke instantly. John's face hardened. "What kind of questions?" "Oh, the usual," Margaret said grimly. "Whether rapid wedding planning indicates pregnancy, financial desperation, or immigration issues. Charming man, your cousin." Lisa felt ice form in her stomach. "He's not going to give up, is he?" "No," John said quietly. "He's not, but neither are we." Across town at the New York Athletic Club, Bradley Morrison III was having a very different kind of morning meeting. "Madison, darling," he purred into his phone while reviewing the photos his investigator had taken of John and Lisa at the bridal salon. "How lovely to hear from you." "Yes, I saw the engagement announcement. Shocking, isn't it? Poor Johnny, so easily manipulated by gold-digging waitresses." Madison Thornfield's voice was sharp with interest. "Are you implying what I think you're implying, Bradley?" "I'm not implying anything, sweetheart. I'm simply observing that my dear cousin has a pattern of making impulsive decisions when he's vulnerable." Bradley smiled his predatory smile. "Didn't you mention he was quite distraught after your little pregnancy scare last year?" The silence on the other end of the line was pregnant with possibility. "You know," Madison said slowly, "I did always think Johnny and I had unfinished business. How tragic that he's rushing into marriage before properly examining his feelings," Bradley said, examining his manicured nails. "If only someone who truly knew him could help him see clearly. I suppose I could reach out, for his own good, of course." "Of course. Though I'd wait until the weekend. I hear they're having quite the whirlwind ceremony. Such a shame when these rushed affairs don't work out." Phase 3, Bradley thought as he hung up. Let's see how solid this little romance really is when faced with the ghost of relationships past. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to several society reporters. Time to remind everyone that Johnny Blackwood has never successfully maintained a relationship longer than 6 months, and poor Miss Gonzalez is about to learn why. By noon, Lisa's head was spinning with cake tastings, flower arrangements, and venue coordinators who spoke exclusively in French and charged by the syllable. "I need air," she announced as they left the 4th caterer of the day. "And possibly a drink, or therapy. Maybe all 3. John immediately steered her toward Central Park. "Come on, I know a place." They ended up at a small food truck near the Bethesda Fountain, eating the best hot dogs in Manhattan, while sitting on a bench watching tourists take selfies. "This is perfect," Lisa sighed, leaning against John's shoulder. "No vendors, no schedules, no one asking about centerpieces or color schemes." "No regrets?" John asked quietly. Lisa was quiet for a moment, considering. "About the wedding?" "No." "About marrying you?" She looked up at him. "Ask me again in 50 years. John laughed and kissed the top of her head. "Deal." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the world go by. Then Lisa's phone rang. "Mom," she answered, immediately switching to Spanish. "¿Cómo estás?" John watched her face change as she listened to whatever her mother was saying. Even without understanding the words, he could tell something was wrong. ¿Qué médico? ¿Cuándo? Lisa's voice was getting tight with worry. "Mommy, no firmes nada hasta que yo llegue, okay?" She hung up and immediately started calculating in her head. "What's wrong?" John asked. "My mom's doctor wants to change her treatment plan. There's some new experimental therapy that might help, but insurance won't cover it." Lisa rubbed her temples. "It's $15,000 per month." John didn't hesitate. "I'll take care of it." "John, no, that's not why I'm marrying you." "I know it's not. But you're going to be my wife, which makes your mother my family. And family takes care of each other." Lisa felt tears threatening. "You can't just throw money at every problem." "Watch me," John said firmly. "Lisa, I have more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes. If I can't use it to help the people I love, what's the point of having it?" The people I love. The words hung in the air between them. "You love me?" Lisa asked, her voice barely a whisper. John cupped her face in his hands. "I'm falling in love with you, Lisa. Hard and fast and completely. And it scares the hell out of me, but it's also the most real thing I've ever felt." Lisa's heart hammered against her ribs. "John, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." But Lisa was already leaning into him, already closing the distance between them. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "God help us both, but I love you too." When they kissed, right there on the park bench with hot dog vendors and tourists as witnesses, it felt like coming home and setting off fireworks at the same time. They broke apart when John's phone started ringing insistently. "Margaret again," he sighed, checking the caller ID. "We should probably—" "John." Margaret's voice was tight with controlled panic when he answered. "Where are you?" "Central Park. Why? What's wrong now?" "Madison Thornfield is at the penthouse. She says she needs to speak with you urgently about unfinished business." Lisa felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Even she knew who Madison Thornfield was. Socialite, heiress, and according to the tabloids, John's most serious ex-girlfriend. John's face went white. "Tell her I'm not available." "I tried. She says she'll wait. She's persistent." John hung up and looked at Lisa with an expression of pure dread. "Madison is Bradley's nuclear option," he said quietly. "If he's sending her now—" "What kind of unfinished business?" Lisa asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. John was quiet for a long moment. "The kind that could destroy everything we've built." Lisa felt the fairy tale starting to crack around the edges. "John, what aren't you telling me? Madison and it was complicated, and Bradley knows exactly which buttons to push to make it seem more complicated than it actually was." "Did you love her?" "I thought I did. But that was before I knew what love actually felt like." Lisa wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But the timing of Madison's sudden appearance felt like more than coincidence. "We should go," she said, standing up. "Face whatever this is together." John caught her hand. "Lisa, I need you to know. Whatever Madison says, whatever she implies, what I feel for you is real. More real than anything I've ever experienced." "Then prove it," Lisa said, meeting his eyes. "When we get to your apartment, and she's sitting there looking perfect and talking about your shared history, prove that I'm the one you choose." John brought her hand to his lips and kissed her engagement ring. "Always," he said. "I choose you. Always." But as they walked back toward the waiting storm, both of them wondered if love would be enough to weather what Bradley had planned next. In his office, Bradley received a text from Madison, "At the penthouse. This is going to be fun." He smiled and poured himself a celebratory scotch. "Checkmate, Johnny boy." Let's see how your little waitress handles competition from someone who actually belongs in your world. The endgame was beginning. John's penthouse, Upper East Side, 2:47 p.m. Madison Thornfield was everything Lisa had feared she would be, and worse. Sitting in John's living room like she owned it, the blonde socialite was a vision of effortless elegance in head-to-toe Chanel. She had the kind of bone structure that photographers killed for, the kind of pedigree that opened doors before she even knocked, and the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to question whether she belonged anywhere. "Johnny," Madison purred as they entered, rising gracefully from the Italian leather sofa. "You look wonderful. And this must be the famous Lisa." The way she said famous made it sound like a social disease. "Madison," John's voice was carefully neutral. "What are you doing here? Can't an old friend stop by to congratulate you on your engagement?" Madison's smile was perfect, practiced, and sharp enough to cut glass. "Though I have to admit, I was surprised by the speed of everything. It's so unlike you to be impulsive." Lisa felt like she was watching a tennis match where she didn't know the rules and everyone else was playing to win Wimbledon. "Madison Thornfield," the woman extended a manicured hand to Lisa. "Johnny and I have quite the history together." "So I've heard," Lisa said, shaking the offered hand and trying not to wince at Madison's grip. "Congratulations on your recent engagement to Senator Collins's son." Madison's perfect smile flickered for just a moment. "Oh, that. Yes, well, sometimes one discovers that what one thought one wanted isn't actually what one needs." The subtext was subtle as a brick through a window. "How philosophical," John said dryly. "I'm sure Lisa and I would love to hear your thoughts on love and marriage, but we have a wedding to plan." "Actually," Madison settled back onto the sofa with the air of someone planning to stay, "that's exactly what I wanted to discuss. Johnny, are you sure you're thinking clearly about this?" Lisa felt heat flush through her. "Excuse me?" "Oh, I don't mean anything personal, dear." Madison's tone was all honey and poison. "It's just that Johnny has a pattern of making grand romantic gestures when he's under stress. Remember the time you proposed to that actress in Cannes after the Morrison deal fell through?" John's jaw tightened. "Madison, or when you bought me that ridiculous necklace after your father threatened to cut you off." Madison laughed, the sound like champagne bubbles with razor edges. "You do tend to throw money and commitment at problems, darling." Lisa felt something cold settle in her stomach. "John threw money at problems?" "It's not like that," John said quickly, but Lisa could see the truth in his eyes. Madison wasn't lying. "Of course it's not," Madison continued smoothly. "But darling, rushing into marriage with someone you barely know, after what happened with your father's ultimatum, it does seem rather convenient." "That's enough." John's voice was low and dangerous. But Madison was just getting started. "Lisa, has Johnny told you about our last conversation? It was just 6 months ago at the Hamptons. He said he wasn't ready for marriage because he'd never found anyone who understood his world. Someone who could be a real partner in the life he was born to lead." Each word was a carefully placed knife, designed to hit exactly where Lisa was most vulnerable. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Lisa asked, her voice carefully controlled. "I'm suggesting that perhaps Johnny is marrying you for the wrong reasons. And you—" Madison's eyes swept over Lisa's simple dress, her lack of designer accessories, her obvious discomfort in these surroundings. "Well, you deserve someone who wants you for yourself, not as a solution to a family crisis." The room went dead silent. Lisa looked at John, searching his face for a denial, for anger, for something that would prove Madison wrong. Instead, she saw guilt. "Lisa," John started, but she held up a hand. "Is she right?" Lisa asked quietly. "About the pattern?" John's hesitation was answer enough. "I see," Lisa said, standing up. "Well, this has been illuminating." "Lisa, wait. No, John. Madison's right about one thing. I do deserve someone who wants me for myself." Lisa's voice was steady, but John could see the hurt bleeding through. And you deserve someone who fits into your world without having to be coached through it. That's not what I want, isn't it? Lisa gestured around the penthouse, at Madison sitting there like she'd never left, at the life of wealth and privilege that suddenly felt like a cage. Look at this situation. Really look at it. A few days ago, you needed a fake fiancé to solve a business problem. Now you need a real wife to solve a family crisis. When do I stop being a solution and start being a choice? Madison watched this exchange with barely concealed satisfaction. Poor little waitress, she thought. Welcome to the reality of dating a Blackwood. Lisa, please. John stepped toward her, but she backed away. I need some air. I need to think. Don't go. We can work this out. Lisa paused at the door, her hand on the handle. Can we? Because right now, I feel like the only honest thing Madison said was that you have a pattern, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm just the latest iteration. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. John turned to Madison with fury blazing in his eyes. Get out! Johnny, I was only trying to help. Get out! John's roar echoed through the penthouse. And tell Bradley that if he ever uses you to hurt Lisa again, I will destroy him. Completely. Madison gathered her purse with wounded dignity. I was trying to save you from making a mistake, Johnny. That girl doesn't belong in our world. You're right, John said quietly. She doesn't belong in our world. She's too good for it. Too real. Too honest. He walked to the window, looking out at the city where Lisa was somewhere, probably crying, probably questioning everything they'd built together. She deserves better than any of us. Then why fight for her? John turned back to Madison, and she was startled by the raw emotion in his eyes. Because for the first time in my life, I want to be worthy of someone's love instead of just entitled to it. 3 blocks away, Lisa sat on a bench in Central Park, crying for the second time in 3 days, and hating herself for both occasions. Her phone buzzed with texts from John. Please come back. Let me explain. Madison was lying about most of it. I love you. That's the only truth that matters. Don't let Bradley win. The last text made her laugh through her tears. This wasn't about Bradley winning. This was about her finally seeing clearly. She was a nursing student from Washington Heights who made coffee for a living. John was a billionaire heir who owned art worth more than most people's houses. They'd known each other for 4 days. 4 days. Her phone rang. Carmen Gonzalez. Mija? Her mother's voice was concerned. You sound upset. I'm fine, Mommy. Just wedding stress. Lisa. You think I was born yesterday? What happened? And suddenly, Lisa found herself telling her mother everything. The fake engagement, the real feelings, Bradley's attacks, Madison's visit, the growing certainty that she was in over her head. Carmen listened without interrupting, the way she had when Lisa was little, and the world felt too big and scary. You know what your problem is, Mija? Carmen said finally. What? You're so afraid of being hurt that you're ready to hurt yourself first. Lisa blinked. What do you mean? This man, this John, you said he chose you over his family's expectations. He defended you to his father. He wants to pay for my medical care without being asked. He looks at you like you're the son. Carmen's voice was gentle but firm. And the moment someone suggests maybe he doesn't love you as much as you love him, you run. Mommy, you don't understand. Madison knew things about him, about his past. Of course she did. She's his past. You're his future. Unless you're too scared to fight for it. Lisa sat in silence, absorbing her mother's words. What if I'm not enough for his world? What if his world isn't enough for you? Carmen countered. Mija, love isn't about fitting into someone else's life. It's about building a new life together. Meanwhile, in his study, Bradley Morrison III was celebrating with his most expensive bottle of champagne. Perfect execution, Madison, he said into his phone. The look on her face when you mentioned his pattern of grand gestures? Priceless. I almost felt sorry for her, Madison said. She really does love him. Which makes this so much more satisfying. Johnny's probably throwing a tantrum right now, realizing his perfect little romance was built on desperation and convenience. What if they work it out? Bradley's smile was pure predator. They won't. Because tomorrow, the real bomb drops. I've arranged for the insurance fraud investigation to hit Carmen Gonzalez's medical clinic. When Lisa's mother gets arrested, let's see how much Johnny's love is really worth. Back at the penthouse, John was pacing like a caged animal, his phone in his hand, thumb hovering over Lisa's contact. Margaret appeared in the doorway. Sir, the wedding planner called. They need to know about final numbers for Saturday. Cancel it, John said quietly. Sir? Cancel the wedding, Margaret. Cancel everything. Are you sure that's what you want to do? John looked at his reflection in the window. Expensive suit, perfect hair, empty eyes. The same man he'd been a week ago. The same man Lisa had seen something worth loving in. No, he said suddenly. Don't cancel anything. I'm going to get her back. How? John smiled for the first time since Lisa had walked out. By proving that some things are worth fighting for, even if you have to fight the whole world to keep them. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? Margaret called out. To remind the woman I love that fairy tales don't end with the princess walking away. They end with the prince proving he's worthy of her. Lisa was still sitting on the park bench when John found her, holding 2 cups of coffee from the cart where they'd had lunch earlier. Peace offering? He said, sitting down beside her and offering her a cup. Lisa looked at him, really looked at him. He'd changed out of his expensive suit into jeans and a simple white t-shirt. His hair was messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked young and uncertain and completely different from the polished businessman who'd lived in that penthouse. Madison's right about one thing, he said without preamble. I do have a pattern of throwing money at problems, of making grand gestures when I'm desperate. But she's wrong about you. How do you know? Because the money came after. The feelings came first. John turned to face her fully. I was falling for you before I knew about your mother's medical bills, before I knew about your student loans, before I knew about any of the practical reasons I could help you. John, I fell in love with the woman who remembered how I took my coffee, who called me out for being overdressed at 7 a.m., who looked at my father like he was just another person instead of the most powerful man in New York. John's voice was rough with emotion. I fell in love with someone who saw me, Lisa. Really saw me. Not my bank account, not my potential, not what I could do for her career. Me. Lisa felt tears starting again. What if your world doesn't accept me? Then we'll build our own world. Just you and me, and whatever we decide matters. And if Bradley keeps attacking us, then we fight back, together. Because that's what people do when they love each other. They face the world as a team. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, watching tourists feed pigeons and couples walk hand in hand. Your mother called me, John said softly. Lisa's head snapped up. What? She wanted to know if I was planning to let her daughter throw away the best thing that ever happened to her because of some insecure blonde woman's opinion. Despite everything, Lisa laughed. She said that? In Spanish. I had to get Margaret to translate. John smiled. Your mother's terrifying. I like her. She likes you too. Probably more than she should. Lisa. John took her hands, and she didn't pull away. I know this is crazy. I know we're moving fast. I know my family is insane and my cousin is a sociopath, and my world is full of people like Madison who will always question whether you belong. Not exactly a compelling sales pitch. But here's the thing. I don't want to belong to that world anymore. I want to belong to you. I want to build something real with someone who makes me want to be better than I was yesterday. John pulled the engagement ring from his pocket. She'd left it on his dresser when she'd stormed out. Marry me, Lisa. Not because it's convenient, not because it solves problems, not because anyone expects us to. Marry me because you love me, and I love you, and sometimes that's enough to build everything else on. Lisa looked at the ring, then at John, then at the life she'd have to choose if she said yes. What if we're making a mistake? Then we'll make it together, and figure it out together, and fix it together. John slipped the ring back onto her finger. That's what love is, isn't it? Choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. Lisa felt the last of her walls crumble, especially when it's hard. So what do you say? Ready to marry me in 3 days and scandalize all of New York society? Lisa laughed and kissed him, right there on the park bench where they'd confessed their love hours earlier. Yes, she said against his lips. Let's show them what real love looks like. But as they walked back toward John's penthouse, hand in hand and hearts full of hope, neither of them noticed the black sedan that had been following Lisa all afternoon, or the man inside it making a phone call to Bradley Morrison III. Boss? Phase 4 is a go. The target is headed back to the penthouse. The clinic raid is set for tomorrow morning. Bradley's voice was ice cold. Perfect. Let's see how much John's love is worth when Lisa's mother is in handcuffs. The final battle was about to begin. Saturday morning, wedding day, 6:45 a.m. Lisa Marie Gonzalez was supposed to be getting married in 6 hours, but instead she was sitting in a police station holding her mother's trembling hands while federal agents read them their rights. This is all a mistake, Carmen kept repeating in Spanish, her confusion making her seem smaller and more fragile than Lisa had ever seen her. I just went to the doctor. I just took my medicine. I know, Mommy, Lisa whispered back, fighting to keep her voice steady while her world crumbled around her. We're going to fix this. But even as she said it, Lisa felt the terrible certainty that some things couldn't be fixed. Not with love, not with hope, and definitely not with the $37 currently in her checking account. The lead investigator, Agent Morrison, no relation to Bradley, though the coincidence felt cruel, was a stern woman in her 50s who looked like she'd never smiled in her life. Miss Gonzalez? Agent Morrison said, settling across from them with a thick file. Your mother has been receiving treatment from a clinic that's been under investigation for insurance fraud for 18 months. The bills submitted for her care list procedures that were never performed and medications that were never prescribed. That's impossible, Lisa said. I've been to every appointment with her. I've seen every treatment. I'm sure you have. But the paperwork tells a different story. Agent Morrison opened the file, revealing financial documents that made Lisa's blood turn to ice. And according to our investigation, you've been the primary beneficiary of these fraudulent claims. Lisa stared at the papers, her mind racing. I don't understand. I pay for everything out of pocket. Insurance barely covers anything. Then how do you explain the $47,000 in fraudulent claims filed in your mother's name over the past year? Claims that resulted in cash payments to an account bearing your Social Security number. The room spun. Lisa felt like she was drowning in air. There's no account. I work at a coffee shop. Worked at a coffee shop, Agent Morrison corrected. Until you became engaged to John Blackwood and suddenly had access to resources for experimental treatments. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. Bradley. He'd orchestrated all of this. The fake accounts, the fraudulent claims, probably even the timing of the investigation. This is a setup, Lisa said desperately. Someone is framing us. My mother has dementia. She doesn't even understand what's happening. That's what they all say, Agent Morrison replied coolly. We'll need you both to remain in custody while we sort this out. For how long? Could be weeks, could be months. Depends on how cooperative you are. Lisa felt the last piece of her fairy tale crumble into dust. At exactly 7:30 a.m., John Harrison Blackwood III received the phone call that would define the rest of his life. Johnny? Lisa's voice was small and broken, coming through the static of a police station phone. I need you to hear this from me before you see it on the news. John's blood turned to ice as Lisa explained about the raid, the accusations, the evidence that had been carefully planted to destroy her. By the time she finished, He was already in his car, speeding toward downtown. "Lisa, I'm coming to get you. We'll hire the best lawyers. We'll fight this." "No." Her voice was quiet, but firm. "John, you need to listen to me very carefully. Walk away." "What?" "No, absolutely not. If you get involved in this, Bradley wins everything. He destroys me, he destroys you, he gets the company, and your father loses his son. I won't be responsible for that." "Lisa, I don't care about the company. I care about you." The words came out fierce and desperate. "I love you too much to let you throw your life away for someone who's about to be arrested for federal crimes." John felt like someone had reached into his chest and ripped out his heart. "You think I would abandon you? I think you should. This isn't some romantic comedy where love conquers all, John. This is real life, with real consequences. And in real life, sometimes loving someone means letting them go." The line went quiet, except for the sound of Lisa crying. "I have to go," she whispered. "Take care of yourself, Johnny. Be happy." The phone went dead. John stared at his cell phone for exactly 30 seconds. Then he called his father. "Absolutely not," William Blackwood Sr. said, before John had even finished explaining the situation. "Son, I understand you have feelings for this girl, but if she's involved in federal crimes, she's not." John's voice was steel. "This is Bradley, Dad. This has his fingerprints all over it. Even if that's true, getting involved now would be corporate suicide. The board won't stand for it. The press will crucify us. And frankly, marrying someone under federal investigation would be the final nail in your career coffin." John looked at his father. Really looked at him. William Blackwood Sr., the most powerful man in New York, reduced to worrying about board opinions and press coverage. "You know what, Dad? You're right." William blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. "This would be career suicide," John continued. "It would probably cost me the company. The board would revolt, the press would have a field day, and Bradley would probably end up as your heir." "Exactly. So you understand why—" "I understand that I don't want to be the kind of man who abandons the woman he loves when she needs him most." John stood up, his decision crystallizing with perfect clarity. "I understand that some things are more important than money or power or family approval." "John, think about what you're saying." "I am thinking. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking clearly." John smiled, and William was startled by how much his son suddenly looked like his late wife. "Dad, do you know why Mom married you?" The question caught William off guard. What does that have to do with anything?" "She told me once. I was 16, angry about some stupid boarding school drama. She said she married you because when her father lost everything in the savings and loan crisis, you were the only person who didn't treat her differently, the only one who saw her instead of her circumstances." William's throat tightened. "Your mother was an extraordinary woman." "She was. And she would have been horrified by the man I've become. Someone who judges people by their bank accounts, who lets other people's opinions determine his choices, who's more concerned with appearances than with doing what's right. John, I'm going to save the woman I love, Dad, with or without your blessing, with or without the company, with or without the family money." John headed for the door. "Because that's what extraordinary people do. They choose love over comfort, courage over convenience. If you walk out that door, there may be no coming back." John paused, his hand on the doorknob. "Then I guess I'll have to build something new, with someone who believes I'm worth it." Meanwhile, in his corner office, Bradley Morrison III was having the best morning of his life. The news was already breaking. Blackwood heir's fiancée arrested in insurance fraud scandal. The photos of Lisa in handcuffs were front-page material. The board was in emergency session, and Johnny was nowhere to be found. Perfect, Bradley thought, pouring himself a celebratory mimosa. By tonight, I'll be the heir apparent, and Johnny will be yesterday's news. His phone rang. Marcus Webb, his private investigator. "Boss, we have a problem." What kind of problem? John Blackwood just hired Davidson Martinez and Associates. Bradley nearly choked on his drink. Davidson Martinez and Associates were the most expensive, most ruthless criminal defense attorneys in the country. The kind of lawyers who made federal prosecutors wake up in cold sweats. He also liquidated his personal investment portfolio. We're talking about $40 million, cash. Bradley felt a flutter of unease. What's he planning? I don't know, but whatever it is, he's going all in. At the police station, Lisa was in an interrogation room trying to explain financial documents she'd never seen to agents who'd already decided she was guilty when the door burst open. A woman in an Armani suit and the attitude of someone who regularly made federal judges apologize entered like a force of nature. Elena Davidson, criminal defense attorney. I represent Miss Gonzalez. She placed a business card on the table like she was laying down a royal flush. This interrogation is over. Agent Morrison looked annoyed. We're conducting a federal investigation without proper representation present, which makes any statements inadmissible. You have 30 minutes to charge my client or release her. We have evidence. You have planted evidence, and we both know it. My team is already tracing the financial trail back to its actual source. Would you like to guess what we're going to find? The room went dead silent. Elena smiled like a shark. I thought not. Miss Gonzalez, you're free to go. Outside the police station, Lisa found John waiting by a black SUV, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the past 6 hours. Before you say anything, he said as she approached, I know you told me to walk away. I know you think I'm throwing my life away. I know this is crazy and reckless, and probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. John, but I also know that I'd rather spend my life fighting for you than spend it without you. So if you'll have me, unemployed, probably disowned, definitely broke me, I'm yours. Lisa stared at him. What do you mean, unemployed? I quit. Walked out of my father's office, liquidated my trust fund to pay for Elena and her team, and told the board exactly what I thought of their opinions. You gave up everything for me. I gave up everything that didn't matter for the only thing that does. Lisa felt tears starting again. But this time they were happy tears. You magnificent idiot, she whispered, throwing her arms around his neck. I love you so much. Is that a yes to marrying me? Because I should mention, we still have a wedding booked for this afternoon, assuming you still want to go through with it. Lisa pulled back to look at him. John Harrison Blackwood III, are you seriously asking me to marry you in a police station parking lot while we're both probably about to be indicted? I'm asking you to marry me anywhere, any time, under any circumstances. Because you're my home, Lisa. You're my family. You're my future. John cupped her face in his hands. And I promise you, we're going to build something beautiful together. The wedding took place 6 hours later in Central Park, at the same spot where they'd had their first real conversation over hot dogs. It wasn't the society event Bradley had expected to destroy. Instead, it was exactly what John and Lisa had dreamed of. Small, intimate, and absolutely perfect. Carmen Gonzalez, released after Elena's team proved the charges were fabricated, walked her daughter down a makeshift aisle lined with food trucks and street musicians. William Blackwood Sr., who had surprised everyone by showing up with a grudging respect for his son's choices, served as best man. Margaret cried through the entire ceremony. The priest, a jovial man who normally worked weddings in Washington Heights, looked slightly overwhelmed by the surreal nature of performing a ceremony for New York's most infamous couple in the middle of a public park. Do you, John Harrison Blackwood III, take Lisa Marie Gonzalez to be your lawfully wedded wife for richer or poorer, in good times and in bad, for better or worse? John looked at Lisa in her simple white dress, holding a bouquet of flowers they'd bought from a street vendor, and smiled. I do. Especially for worse, because that's when we'll need each other most. And do you, Lisa Marie Gonzalez, take John Harrison Blackwood III to be your lawfully wedded husband, for richer or poorer, in good times and in bad, for better or worse. Lisa looked at the man who'd given up his entire world for her, who'd chosen love over security, who'd proven that fairy tales could exist in the real world. I do. Always and forever. When they kissed, the crowd of tourists, street performers, and curious onlookers burst into spontaneous applause. 6 months later, Bradley Morrison III was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for orchestrating the insurance fraud scheme. It turned out that Elena Davidson's team had found a digital trail linking him to everything. The fake accounts, the planted evidence, even the bribes to get Carmen's case prioritized. The Blackwood Industries Board, faced with the public relations nightmare of having promoted a criminal to the executive committee, quietly begged John to return. He declined, choosing instead to start his own consulting firm with Lisa as his business partner. John and Lisa bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, halfway between his old world and hers. They kept the penthouse for special occasions and Carmen's medical appointments, but their real home was the place where they could be themselves without apology. Carmen's experimental treatment, funded by John's liquidated trust fund, was showing remarkable results. On her good days, she taught Lisa's neighbors how to make authentic tamales and told embarrassing stories about John to anyone who would listen. Madison Thornfield married a boring tech billionaire and sent John and Lisa a wedding gift with a note that said, "I still think you're both crazy, but you're crazy together, which I suppose is what matters." And every morning at 7:15, John still showed up at Been There, Done That, which had been saved from closure by an anonymous investor who might or might not have been William Blackwood Sr., for his double espresso with a splash of oat milk. Except now, instead of never looking up from his phone, he spent those 15 minutes flirting shamelessly with his wife. "Same order?" Lisa would ask, even though she knew the answer. "Always," John would reply, even though they both knew he was talking about more than coffee. And every time she handed him his cup and their fingers touched, they both felt the same electric spark that had started this whole crazy adventure. Some love stories begin with love at first sight. Others begin with 5 minutes to solve an impossible problem. But the best ones? The best ones begin with two people brave enough to choose each other, no matter what the world thinks. And they live messily, imperfectly, beautifully ever after.